Hello and welcome to Conversations about Language Teaching. I'm Reed Riggs.
I'm Diane Neubauer.
So I'm going to lead this one today. Our topic is being new at a school.
Hmm.
Okay, so to get us started, I I've had a lot of thoughts over the last 2.2 years. This is my third year at my new place, and I've been new at two university settings before in the past. So I thought I'd start with my own experience and then we can tie in whatever we want to tie in afterwards.
Hmm.
And I really
Yeah,
we came up with this topic last night. Yeah, Diane, you wanted to say something?
sure. The thought was just, I'll anonymize when I share about things. And my reflection on being new as a teacher has been kind of two schools in Illinois and one in Colorado. Mainly, I'm thinking of the one in Colorado and being a new graduate student and now being a new university professor. And it's felt different each iteration.
Sure.
I'll focus a little more on the language teaching side, but I think there's other implications, and some of the things I'm seeing in the teachers that I'm teaching,
Oh, wonderful.
like in-service teachers that are in
Yeah.
classes I teach now.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So I'm glad you said that because I'll keep that in mind um, as I jump into my first part, which is so you and I talked last night. Should we record tomorrow? We said, sure, let's do it. There is time. And we said, what's the topic? We said, being new. So I really just from last night to this morning thought, how do I condense all of my couple of years of thoughts into something that could start a show? And one thing that I've mowed over the years, and then again until this moment right now, is having two goals that are kind of in competition, and that explains why we might have conflicting feelings and conflicting actions. And I think so I like to sort of nest my goals like umbrellas inside umbrellas, but I don't think these two fit inside each other very well. And it's useful to think of them as two umbrellas, these two goals that are kind of next to each other, and then each have little umbrellas inside of them. So they are um, being a good institutional member,
Mhm.
and so getting along with colleagues, checking all the boxes of like onboarding, uh, getting all of your learning management system set up, having some sort of unit plan if that's asked of you, going to your colleagues and asking, what are your needs? What do you need me to teach so that they're ready for you? When I was at the University of Hawaii, we called it articulation. And now
Mhm.
at my new school, at my current school, it's called vertical alignment. But the teachers are supposed to have meetings and say, okay, so middle school is getting the kids ready to do what in high school. Then each year is getting them ready to do what in the next year. And so there is some overlap between that and my other big umbrella, which is learning. And for language, I want to define learning as proficiency. It's can they use the language, listening, speaking, reading, writing as skills. You could call it in terms of modes, interpretive mode, interpersonal mode, and presentational mode. Those are kind of the performances that we assess in. So in language, we have our own ways of defining learning. You can't, especially as a first year teacher, I would prioritize even looking back, like, what if I could tell my past self, what should you prioritize? Being a good institutional member is the number one thing you
Mhm.
have to do when you first get there, because you can't really teach and focus on learning if you've got hostile
Not fully.
colleagues, if you're not fully onboarded, if you don't know the learning management system and you have to constantly
Hmm.
redo things because you didn't like input your units correctly into the computer system. Um,
Yeah.
so the
So kind of
first
cut
year,
yourself some slack
yeah,
about like
yeah,
getting like really all fired
yeah, to teach,
going with teaching
right,
excellence in those first few weeks, especially at being at a new place, I think. Yeah.
sure, and
But I
and
think
yeah,
that being a good institutional member, being like a good just part of a school is also helping students understand who you are, that you're a reliable adult, that you're going to be consistent, and that these are what you're expecting. This is something they can do, like all of that stuff. A lot of my stories are going to relate to that side. So.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess the last part I'll add to that is I was told over and over by my dean at the time. I kept saying, we got to use the target language. I can't get the students to even participate. And we're supposed to be doing this in the target language, but I'm just constantly trying to get their basic attention and I'm using English all the time. And she kept saying, for your first year, you just need to build relationships with the students. Like you just need to get them to know you as their teacher. And so what I saw then and what I see now in the new teachers, we have new teachers this year that I'm talking with. Everyone cuts you slack. No one is expecting you to be a very effective teacher in terms of teaching and learning during your first year. Like just know that no one else is expecting much of your learning
Yeah.
outcomes during your first year. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that is exactly something that somebody asked me, and I'm teaching new teachers. So they're in an MA program, and one of them said, like, I mean, people keep telling me that kind of thing. Like, I'm new and I'm just getting started as a teacher, but I don't want to harm kids. I don't want to like make their learning worse. How would you respond? I had some answers that I can throw out, but
Yeah, it's you're coming in with a handicap. Like being new, it's the nature of the situation that you kind of can't. That's and you're not harming kids. That you're not giving them the best that you could, but also you're always going to keep growing. Like this
yes.
year, so when I watched Nan, my wife, year after year, she'd go to conferences and do online PD, every opportunity she could get to keep learning. And she kept trying new things every year. She learned cool things from teachers. She was ready to do it because other things were in place from the previous year that she could build
Yeah.
on. And every year she's like, man, my students are even more proficient. My students are using even more target language in the classroom. My students are
Hmm.
showing like even better comprehension this year. Every year she's been
Yeah.
teaching Chinese for I think 9 years now, 8 or 9 years now,
More, I think,
at
a
the
little
same
bit.
school.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
at the
don't
same school.
at
Yeah.
the same school. Oh, she was teaching in a
Yeah.
different school before that, but just with her
Right.
same set of
Because I met
students at
her
this school.
then.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And
two
just to
used to, yeah.
give her credit, she is the Hawaii World Language Teacher of the Year for 2024. Isn't that right? Is that this year or was it?
Yes. This year.
Yeah. And so, I
Yes.
mean, she's recognized as being an excellent teacher.
Right.
Just want to give her
So
kudos
at
for
her
that.
current school, yeah. So she's always growing. Now, I'm seeing the same thing with my students that my first year I had just dismal participation. I had two pretty cool classes and I struggled to get one of them to participate, but at least they would somewhat. But now I've got excellent classes. My students are really bought into the idea of using the language
Yeah.
and getting into it. And I think it's
And
just going to keep growing.
year three, right? At
Year
that
three.
school.
I'm at my third year now.
Yeah. And I
So
feel like that same kind of
yeah,
thing happened to me with the last high school that I was working at full time. And I think like that first year, a lot of testing went on by the students of me. And
yeah,
some that were like, "Oh, we love you're doing this new approach," because I was very comprehension based, communicative and in process. And those that had kind of stuck in with a more textbook oriented, maybe a little bit more drill kind of approach from a previous teacher, they were like, "Oh, I can really feel like I'm learning now."
oh,
But then others
yeah,
that I would say the ones that are just after year one, some of those students who were really successful with that kind of approach were resistant and gave some pushback. And
yeah,
so that first year, it was a lot of dealing with that kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, Second year, kind of getting more settled, a little bit of momentum. But by third year is where I felt I realized it happened because a student in his second year with me in class, like at one point in the class, he wasn't like the all fired, I am so going to learn this language to fluency. He was a great student, loved having him in class, but he wasn't like in it for the language per se. He was there
yeah,
probably for the credit and stuff.
yeah,
So just to preface, like what kind of a motivated learner for language purposes, but he stopped and asked me in Chinese, is it okay if I speak in English? And I was like, I've never made a rule like you can't,
mm,
but it was like it's such the tone
bought
by
into it.
that third year
The
there. We
routine,
just
yeah,
had a vibe. Yeah,
that's cool.
Chinese was normal in the class,
Yeah,
and this student was like, I should ask permission. He just felt,
yeah,
and so like it made me realize like, wow, we've really got a thing going here by now,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I was
yeah,
amazed.
yeah. It takes time.
Yeah.
So that kind of permission you want to give yourself. Uh, and the other thing about like my admin really emphasizes at my school that we're not just there to teach our subject area. We're there to raise children. Like we're there
Mhm.
to help children become good people and mentally healthy people, good members of a community. And so there's a lot more that we get kind of pushed on us, which I think is cool because I see kids in front of me
Yeah. They're
and
people. We're teaching
we're
people
teaching people.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just, they're not adults, they're children
Yeah.
who are growing up, and they're, part of the job of school is to help them be well-rounded, like help them be open-minded. We have all these learner profiles, like caring, help them be caring people, and inquisitive. And there's all these other things that are just integrated into a normal education that we put at the forefront. It's part of the IB education.
Yep.
Those come from IB. So as long as you're doing that, I wouldn't say you're harming the children. You're not
Right.
teaching to the full potential that you will 10 years from now, but I would say you'll always be improving anyway, so don't worry about it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think that modeling of lifelong learning as a teacher, you're still learning. And so you're getting used to things. Like I was very honest this fall with the people that I'm teaching now, because I said one of the things that I want to put into all of my teacher education stuff is a slide that says, thank you for being a teacher. And then I look forward to learning from you and with you this semester or in this conference or in this setting. And I really mean that because I'm really in it to learn for me, and I hope they also learn. But it's not like I have the thing and now I pour it out to you humble peasants below me. It's no, we're all in the process of learning, and we'll all learn something through this process. But I this fall, especially in being new to the region that I teach in, not really knowing the school system very well, even like all the acronyms are all different. Like there's a barrage of acronyms the state of Kentucky has that I've never heard elsewhere. And I don't know how this happens, but education loves acronyms and like all these things. And I told them like very directly, like, I mean this all the time, but I really look to you to learn from you about your schools, about the challenges here, about the strengths that these schools have, about your particular strengths as teachers, as people. All of that is something that I'm very deliberately wanting to learn, and it's fine for me not to know everything. And it came up again last night teaching, where I just loved her comment, because she said that one of the things that she tells students is like, if she doesn't know, she tells them, I don't know.
Yeah.
We can find out maybe.
Yeah.
Like here's a way we could go and learn. But to tell students that you don't know models that you also are a learner,
Yeah.
I think. And then she said too, I also tell them I'm sorry if I've done something that wasn't the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And wow, that's so excellent, because we're people with other people
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
classroom.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that is great, rather than kind of a power over domineering
Yeah.
the teacher as the only authority.
Right. 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 Yeah. I did that a lot. I think that this sort of ties to, my students had a lot of questions my first year, like, is this a summative or a formative? Is this going to be on Manage Back? Manage Back is our learning management system. It's just, I don't see it on Classroom. And I had to keep telling them, I haven't yet set that up. Like I haven't yet had time to look at that. I'm still going to look at it. And I think for my tougher students, especially my juniors that year, uh, they were already kind of looking to just sort of slough off school as a whole. And so that gave them more permission to be like, this teacher doesn't know anything. And it was kind of like a teacher's nightmare of being like, what if the students just dig into me because I don't know everything all the time? And they kind of did do that. But I also think, again, it's the nature of the situation that like being new comes with some baggage.
Yeah.
And you can't answer all your students' questions about the institution and how grading is going to work and things because you're literally new to it and
Yeah.
you're
You don't
actually
know
new to it.
yourself.
You don't know it. And so being honest, I think is the best course, and saying thank you. Um, I I think it's good to have some practical, concrete things like I'm subject area lead right now for Japanese and Chinese, and I have so many things to do that I have to have a list of things, like just a physical list. So I have a little notepad, and every other day now I tear off the front page and I copy over the list just so I can catch, like, is there anything urgent? And I just copy the entire list. And while I do that, I get inspired to think of like, oh yeah, there was something, somebody said something, and I add it to the list. I think as a new teacher, it's good to like physically show your notepad and your pen so
Hmm.
that people can see that it's not a write-off. You're not saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll get to that," as if,
Right.
yeah,
It's, yeah, you're
I'll probably
demonstrating you're going to
forget.
do
You're
something.
demonstrating that it's on my list, and you can say it's on my list. So I think that's a really nice like social sign to people around you and for yourself to be like, "Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
need
got to
it.
get to that. I got to,
Because
yeah,
the
I
other
do have to get
thing
to that."
when you're new, you've got all of these things in your head that you're like trying, it's harder to work because you've got more things that you really have to concentrate on that
Yeah,
later might become a little bit more automatic.
yeah,
And so, yeah, you write it down.
yeah,
If it's a
and
priority for you,
yeah,
yeah.
make your list socially visible. It's like people
Yeah.
can see, oh yeah, yeah, it's really on the list.
Hmm.
And then also if you with that handy, you can write down names. Like there's so many things. When I'm during my first week or two, one of my toughest students, I was still learning names. I'm very slow with names always. Um, and so I said, sorry, remind me your name again. He's like, you can't remember my name. We only have 5 people in this class. And I didn't have a quick answer, but then like 5 minutes later, I was like, no, I have 28 students across 4 classes. Like
Yeah.
I'm only a few weeks in, I'm still learning names. Had I had pen and paper, he would have seen a more honest effort to be like, okay, okay. And I could physically look at it and be like, oh yes, you, and say your name. Um,
Yeah.
so that's one of
Yeah,
the
but
things.
yeah, actually, to talk about that name thing a little bit, like one of the strategies that I've often had with beginning classes is that I make learning their names one of the first things as like a class
Yeah.
use of the target language.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I talk about like I am so
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah. Yeah.
are, and then
Yeah.
so all they need to produce there is their own name,
Yeah.
as they start to
Yeah.
follow along with that. And yeah, it's important. But I think, yeah, that point of honesty, I was doing it again last night with the class.
Yeah.
Like I've seen them, but not enough and not frequently enough. And like I'm recognizing all their faces and I have a sense of who this person is, but not always
Yeah.
connecting to their name. And one of the phrases I learned this summer, and you were there when we were in the Star Talk in Portland, the presenter whose name escapes me now, he was doing um,
Glad? What is it called?
GLAD. Thank you,
Glad.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. The GLAD Strategies
Yeah.
Workshop
That's right.
presenter.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not going to
Yeah.
guess his name properly.
Sure.
So
Sure.
again,
Yeah.
here's the
Yeah.
point. The
Yeah.
name thing is important, but I
Yeah.
can't always recall.
Mhm.
But we can look it up,
Yeah.
list him later in the show notes. But in his training, one of the things that he said was, "Teach me your name."
Yeah.
And I've thought about that a lot because I like at the time I was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
what a way to describe that."
Yeah.
And
Makes it sound
and then I've
important.
thought,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's like
Important
I
enough to
you
teach.
you
Yeah.
you are the teacher and I am the learner
I
now. Teach me
mhm.
your name. And it sounded a little commandy. I'm trying to like play around with, what if it were someone who's a little bit
I'd
more
like to learn your
peer?
name. Can you teach me?
Will you teach me your name?
Do you want to teach me
I
your
don't,
name? Yeah. Something like
yeah,
that. Yeah. I'd like to
yeah.
learn your name.
So
Do you want to teach me?
yeah. Or I like even like don't ask if you want, but
Okay.
like you're expressing you want them
Yeah.
to teach you. Like,
Yeah.
and here's a reason for that.
Can you help me learn your name? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Something along those lines
Yeah.
where, because I think sometimes folks who've encountered particularly white Americans not able to pronounce their name or not
Yeah.
remembering their name
Or not
well. And then
trying. Yeah.
there's like this
Yeah.
kind of a microaggression feel to it because their name
Yeah, or
feels
little comments
unusual
that
to
come out
that or
like, "Boy, I'm never gonna remember that," or "Boy, I'm gonna really
yeah.
struggle with that." Like little comments like that can sound really like you don't care. Yeah,
Right, right. So erase those. But like oh, I had a little thought about that.
yeah,
Like oh, you're expressing that it's not do they want to go to the trouble? It's like, no, I am so ready to learn from you. If
sure,
you would
sure,
teach me, I'm here to learn it.
yeah,
Rather
yeah,
than like, do you want to teach me? Because then it's like,
yeah. Like,
maybe
meh, yeah,
I
whatever. Either way, yeah.
yeah.
For mine, I
Yeah,
had,
and
yeah.
can
Go
I
ahead.
share a little
Yeah,
anecdote about that
please do.
too?
Yeah. Hmm.
Because one of the things I did as a new graduate student, I didn't know how, I mean, graduate school is weird, where at least at a school like University of Iowa, there were a lot of us across the College of Education, but there were some meetings that were for anybody and at the beginning of my time in grad school, I thought like, I want to get to know as many people as I can. And so I sat in front of two women at a session. I kind of turned around and said hello. And I don't know if I said my name or asked their name. And they were both African American women, and one had a name that I had not heard before. And I think I probably had a look that was like, ooh, I wonder how I say that. And I tried it, and like I could see her stiffen and
Mm,
react. And
mm,
afterwards, reflecting on it, I was like, I microaggressed her in a
mm,
way. And I wasn't intending to. My intention was, I really want to get your name and say it properly. And I wasn't hearing in such a way that I thought I was going to do that well. But what she did, I thought was smart, because I think maybe she was checking for what was I doing there,
mhm,
because she said, and wait, what's your name? And I
mhm.
said, oh, Diane.
Yeah.
And I was just totally open about it. And I think she kind of like settled a little bit. I
Mm.
wasn't like reacting to her name so much as like, I want to
You were
get that
trying to
right.
get it
And I'm not
right.
sure I
Yeah.
could do it just
I
after
know.
once.
Yeah.
I don't
It's a
know,
tough,
but
tough line.
it's something now I'm more conscious about. Like,
Sure.
what is my
Sure.
face doing when I'm
Yeah.
hearing a name?
Yeah.
What am I going to do when it's a name that's not familiar to me? And
Yeah.
because, if I gave her my Chinese name, I don't think she had a Chinese language background. She
No.
might have
No.
felt the same.
Yeah.
It would have
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
hard to pronounce right off the bat.
I know.
And it's not that she might not want to, but it's
Yeah.
just we need to hear things multiple times, right? We're
Yeah. Yeah.
input-based
Yeah.
teachers.
Yeah.
So helping teach
Yeah.
me your name. Would you say that again? And treating it like every name is like that. And I've tried to
Yeah.
model that more when I've been learning people's names in my classes now,
Yeah.
so that as I'm encountering different kinds of names and different people with different ethnic backgrounds,
Sure. Sure.
I am acknowledging like this is on me. I'm really trying to get everybody's name right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said it was this. Okay, and you said that. And,
Yeah.
and like, did I pronounce that
Yeah.
properly? And those kinds of things. So I
You
think it's
know,
important.
there was a website that someone at my school used to introduce a guest speaker. I'm forgetting the exact occasion it was, but um, there's some website that help. It sends out an invite for a person to record their own name, audio, make an audio recording, and then you can blast that
Yeah,
out to everybody so they can
right.
hear it. And there might be multiple of these. I should look it up, but I was
I think
impressed
it's in my
about the,
signature even
okay,
in yeah, like in
cool,
my email signature. So you can
cool.
click a little thing and hear it. It's
That's great.
definitely on the account in the learning management system that we
Oh, that's
use.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, can I just a little coda to
Yeah.
that same person? I didn't see her much again because again, I didn't realize how much graduate school wasn't going to let me see the same people twice.
Okay.
But I saw her at the end of her program when she was about to graduate, and I remembered her name and I said
Mm.
her name,
Yeah.
and she smiled, and we had this great connection. I was
Yeah.
so glad I had a good a
Yeah. Yeah.
good
Yeah. Yeah.
reconnection with her,
Yeah.
and could congratulate her because she was just completing her dissertation at that phase. So
Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah. So keep trying.
I'm always hyper aware of not wanting to turn something into something bigger that could be perceived as me being invasive. So I'm usually a little more patient. I wouldn't say passive, but I say patient, where it's like I just want to continue the greeting as if I wasn't uh, confused or felt
Yeah.
like the name was new. And then I just trust over time, I'll hear it
Yeah.
again. I'll hear someone else refer to the person. I need that ear training. And then
Yeah.
when my ears bud are trained, I'll be able to say it. I also don't, it can be so subtle where you overemphasize someone's correct pronunciation of their name, where, it's like we had Dr. Nayachet Gray Morning
Hmm.
at in Ajan, and I looked up videos. I found a video of his on YouTube where he introduces himself. And every day, not every day, but over many days, I would play it a couple times. And I just
Hmm.
would sort of check, like, do I hear his voice saying his own name? But
Hmm.
even now, when I say it, as much as I'm trying to get it right, I fear that I might be like overemphasizing it, and then that makes it
Hmm.
sound weird. And so I'm always hyper aware of
Right.
myself, like doing things wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And this is where it's like, let the person tell you how to say it or
sure,
something, or,
sure. Or
because,
just don't turn it into something. Don't make it weird. It's like that's the thing. Like don't make it weird
yeah,
by like saying their name
yeah,
too much. Then it's yeah. So
right, right.
um
Yeah,
like
and case in point, like I thought of a school where they had a number of international students, and some of them were from China. And I found this to be kind of a trend among some from China, at least historically, like 10 years back, 15 years back, at least. They had a student who wanted to go by Sunny. Like she called that her English name, and she preferred people to call her Sunny, but the faculty did not. They would not. they used her Chinese name, and like one of them explained, well, we want to use her real name. And my thought was like, if that
She's
person has
telling
told
you.
you what they
She's told
wanted you
you.
to say.
Yeah, no,
And,
yeah,
and then, so
yeah,
then there's like some of that, like, I want to get it right, but I also want to make you feel like you're representing yourself the way you want to.
yeah,
It's hard.
yep. And there could be policies too. So this came up. Uh,
Oh,
we have
yes, now
we have a
particularly.
running document for one of our impact academies. We do every Tuesday, Thursday is the final block. Students sign up for just some kind of passion project, something they're interested in. And so I co-manage with two other teachers the creativity cohort, and it's kind of like art and theater students who just want an hour to doodle and talk about their drawings and work on other things too. And they're going to be helping make signs for other groups on campus and apply their
Oh,
creativity. It's really neat. And we have a running document of tasks that they're projects that they're working on. And one of the students emailed me and said, I see my official name on the document, but I don't go by that name. I don't respond when people call me that name. Can you change my name to this other name and in class refer to me as this? And so I emailed back right away. I said, thanks for letting me know. I'll change it. I've already changed it on the document and we'll remember in class. And then I forwarded that to the other two teachers and they responded, oh yeah, yeah, sorry, we forgot about that. I was like, cool.
hmm
And so just from then on, I didn't walk into class and say hey, like if it was you, I wouldn't
Yeah.
be like, hey, Diane, hello, Diane, it's you, Diane. Like that makes it
Yeah.
weird. So I didn't say
Right.
anything. We just went on with class. And when something came up, we had to put chairs on the desks because they're going to clean the floors after class. And so I just like said to whatever students, but I remembered in that moment, refer to this student by this name. And I did that. And that's when it came up. It's like, it's when it's
Yeah.
relevant. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And
a
that's the better.
preference thing.
hmm
Yeah, 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 yeah. So um,
Yeah.
you did you have
Um,
other stories? Because you
yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
that you have
Yeah.
all
I
these
did.
teachers you're working with. Yeah.
Oh, well, some I've referred to
Okay.
already. So,
Hmm.
some of the big ones. The one that I was thinking of was another of the strategies I had in working with both at the school that I had been teaching at for a while, but when I was really changing my teaching approach. And then when I went to a new school and was teaching Chinese at a new school, and a strategy that I used to help students get at least what my mindset was behind what I was doing. And that was using different quotes. Like, especially, I do them once every Friday and just a couple minutes of time. It was an English time in the class for the most part. With more advanced students, I eventually kind of used a mix of some Chinese and some English to talk about it. But the idea was a quote either from research or a theorist about second language acquisition, about language learning, about language outcomes, about language in the world and why it mattered. These a whole variety of things. I used the actual 90% plus target language use position statement one time and talked about here's some points in there. This is why I'm really prioritizing, or at least it's a reason. This position statement informs us that this is a really important part about language learning. I want you to have the best outcomes you can. And so the way I would use these quotes, and I have a file which I can share in the show notes of kind of a little collection of 15, 16 different quotes on different aspects of those sorts of things. I would have I would invite a student to use radio voice to read the quote aloud. And then I'd say, what do you think? It's not that they had to agree with me or the quote. And I tried to use quotes that weren't going to be ripping it from context in an awkward way. And I'm not proof texting what I'm doing in the classroom, but I'm informing the students, here's a reason why I'm doing the things the way we're doing them here.
Yeah.
And so they could disagree. They could say like, but often they would find like, oh, and there was one time where I did this with a group that I thought was going to just be like, oh yeah, that is totally, I get that, because they were, I think, in their second or third year of class with me. And this quote was along the lines, it was a Lightbound and Spada quote, I think. And on that, like, comprehension exceeds your productive ability. And I mean, that's even true in our native language. We can understand older literature, but we might not be able to speak like that. But especially in a new language. And reading the quote, I expected much more of a thing. I had a lot of students go, oh, phew, I thought I was messed up. I'm like, wow, okay. So like
Yeah,
continuing just this little bit each week to kind of build the case for these are the things that I'm doing. This
yeah,
is why, this is what you can expect as an outcome.
yeah.
Here's what you might see in the world. I used a Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook founder who speaks some Mandarin. Like he did a little speech at an event in China sometime, and uh, he was so warmly received by the audience. And I showed that because his
Mm,
Chinese
sure.
kind
That's
of,
fine. It's kind of
yeah,
not novice high,
it
what would you say?
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of intermediate low.
Okay.
But you know, you can really hear an accent
Sure.
there and the way he phrases things, and but he's getting messages across clearly enough.
Yeah.
And this was several years ago. Maybe he's improved.
Yeah.
But I wanted them to see that so that they could see like somebody who sounds that way was really warmly received. It is worth trying. In a Chinese speaking environment, very often you're really going to meet with not disapproval, but encouragement
Yeah.
and things like that, like giving them a little taste of language in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I recommend that kind of practice if you're and not just a dump of here's what we're doing and why.
Yeah.
Maybe you do that for a while, but don't expect that that takes forever.
No.
Just continue a little drip, drip, drip. This
Okay.
is
Well,
why we're doing what we're
this ties to what I wanted to add to that, which is that um, I say this a lot in my faculty meetings that the solution to most of my problems over the last years at this school and also at other schools, university as well, the solution has typically been routines. That
Yeah.
if you keep doing things regularly, students know how to predict and expect what's coming up. They know how to prepare better. They're less surprised by what's going on. They ask less about what are we doing right now or how am I supposed to do this? They know where to look in the instructions. Sometimes we do things in Chinese characters, sometimes in just pinyin, the romanized spelling. They know where are the instructions to check for that.
Yeah.
And so I to get my classes settled, I know teachers usually have a bell ringer activity. I didn't call it that, but it's a term that we don't have bells at our school. That's why
Yeah, yeah. It's still
we don't
called
call
that
it that,
even
I
if there's
guess.
no bell.
Um, but they need to get
The
settled.
first
And
thing.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
the
first
warm
thing,
up.
it's the warm
So
up, yeah, or the on my agenda I read on the board is do now.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know,
It's usually
two
a student independent thing.
yeah, student independent. So it's something when they come in, I can be standing there at the ready to be like, okay, make sure we're doing this, make sure we're doing this. Like get seated, do this, do this. And if that's routine as well, and typically mine is some sort of writing thing. It's something to get quiet, get focused. If it's something too abstract, like start thinking about what you're going to do on this test, or start practicing something or rehearsing something for an assessment coming up. They usually will just start chatting with each other and not doing it. But if it's get your notebook,
Something tangible.
write something really concrete, simple. It's got
Yeah,
to be simple. Ideally, there's
yeah,
some sort of like prompt or frame sentences they can kind of play with or add to.
yeah.
A
Or
picture to write about. Yeah.
yeah, some people do free voluntary reading. Well, it's not quite voluntary. They must do, but they
Yeah.
can choose which book. So
Compulsory,
sustained silent reading.
compulsory
Yeah,
free
so
vol yeah, free compulsory reading. There you go.
yes, choice reading.
Choice
Yes,
reading. Yeah,
mandated choice.
compulsory choice reading. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So whatever first gets them settled, and then I would pull popsicle sticks with their names on them, and um, it's like, okay, we'll have three people kind of call it so that they know that they might have to do something. A lot of times, especially the students that I inherited that were kind of juniors and seniors, they wouldn't do it, and I would say, okay, so just think of something to write. Like, oh, I'm just thinking. And then
Yeah,
they get nothing on the page. And then when I'd call out people, they'd say like, oh no, I couldn't think of anything. So it's like, you're just not
yeah,
really participating.
yeah.
So
And to
ideally there's a lot of
clarify,
scaffolding.
these are students with many years of Chinese in their background, so
Oh, it's a whole
they
other
are
story. That's
a
for
lot.
another
Yes, that's,
episode.
but just to like with a brand new novice learner, you might not expect writing at that level, but like just for the context
But
of
they
your,
can copy, like, so I can provide
well, true.
frame sentences for them to copy.
Yeah,
And the blank they fill in could be like an English name. Like they could just
right.
write it in English. Like,
Yeah. I like
um,
to eat blank.
I like
Yeah.
pizza. Yeah. What's you want?
Hmm.
Sure. Blank. And then
Yeah.
pizza or something like that. I have
Yeah.
I have posters on my walls now that there's one set of it's two posters next to each other that's like just in Chinese, um, characters painting in English. It says, um, I was born in, or I come from Hawaii. On weekends, I like to go surfing. Sometimes I go to Honolulu's Chinatown. It's all these sentences packed with, they're actual sentences that we could use to talk about literally where we are, like local sentences.
Yeah.
But also I can swap them out. I could say, hey, this alien is from Hawaii. I want you to write some sentences about the alien. You can use these posters. And those posters are always up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an easy thing to point to.
It's got scaffolding.
It's scaffolded there. Yeah. So that's something I find that my students often respond, especially being new, concrete things to do. Like my students have been asking for homework recently, which is strange because I couldn't get them to do it a couple of years ago. But they're like, we want to be prepared for our assessments because they care about their grades a lot. Yeah. And so I said,
and IB schools have some serious assessments at the end.
IB schools, yeah, it's very serious at the end. And my students are kind of trained to like be task managers of their own work. And they're very, even if they're sort of chasing the grade and not interested in the language, they'll be up for doing it if it's going to build up to the grade. And so if I can break that down into things that I can make more input oriented, proficiency oriented, like real learning
grade motivation together with the actual language learning goal that you have for them instead.
That's your carrot and your stick. Okay, what can I build leading up to that that's actually going to be like good for learning as I define it, which is going to be proficiency. So what we'll do for that is, hold on, I kind of lost my thread there. Well, just doing things that are good for them. I had a specific example. Well, oh yeah. Homework.
This is conversations about language teaching. This is what happens.
You're joining us.
This is real conversation.
Real conversation. No, it's so recently what I've been saying is, okay, we have a text that's been given to you. 3 weeks from now, we'll have some big intensive listening and reading assessment about this text. So for your homework, I want you to copy over the first 2 sentences and write out the meaning of it. And you're doing that so that in class, when we talk about it, when we do activities around it, when I ask you questions about it, when we build on it with something playful, you're just more ready. Like you'll just feel more ready in class. And I'd say about half my students do it. Like you shouldn't ever expect students to do homework, and definitely don't build your classroom activities based on the assumption that they've done the homework, because you're setting up chaos where expect that half didn't do it. At least half won't do it. Maybe you have a great class where most will do it. There's still some who don't. And you're setting those ones up for the inability to participate in your activity if your activity is built as such.
Right.
And so just assume that you're teaching it new. However, for students who want to feel like they're, even more ready and capable, they have an option. They have an option to be more ready and feel less lost. Yeah. So homework, I
just saw we have a less than a minute timer has gone off.
Let's thank everybody.
I'm feeling like what I hoped to say was out. So
I've been Reed Riggs.
I'm Diane Neubauer.
Thanks for listening.